Thanks so much for having me today, and thank you for making the time. I know that it's an awkward time. I am just waking up. I am in Vancouver in the Pacific time zone, so I'm glad that we made this work. I am the co-founder of Check My Ads, and Check My Ads is the Adtech watchdog. We are a nonprofit based in Washington, D.C., but we all work remote, and we are looking at the disinformation economy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the disinformation economy. First, I'm going to tell you how we got here, and then what kind of work we do, and how you might be able to either join us or copy what we do in Europe. We want as many people to understand the disinformation economy as possible. So as I said, we're here to put disinformation out of business. Thank you for putting everything in the chat. If you have questions, comments, concerns, ideas, please throw everything in the chat. You are more than welcome to pontificate as I go. There is no subject that I am afraid to speak about. So if you have concerns, I want to hear them. Okay, so how do we get here? In 2016, my business partner, Nandini, started a campaign called Sleeping Giants, and I'll talk about that in a second. In late 2019, we decided to start a newsletter called Branded. It is and was a free newsletter. It now goes out to thousands of people within the ad tech and advertising industry. And then we started a for-profit, and we decided to help advertisers stop funding hate speech. But we realized then that advertisers were not in control of their own ad campaigns, and that they needed to have someone to advocate for them publicly to the ad tech companies themselves. And I'll explain what that is in a second. Then in 2021, we launched our nonprofit. And so that's who I'm representing today. It's Check My Ads Institute, the nonprofit ad tech watchdog. Okay, so I don't have to tell you that we are in an infodemic or that the disinformation economy is thriving. In America, in the last 10 years, we've lost 30,000 journalism jobs, and mostly local journalism jobs. It is devastating the journalism industry. And at the same time, disinformation outlets are thriving. We know that a conservative number is $2.6 billion going towards disinformation every year. But this is not just about money. When I'm talking about ad tech, I'm talking about the system of companies that holds up the internet. Digital advertising holds up the internet. And when you are a propagandist or a publisher of disinformation, there are three things that you need. You need money, of course. You don't need as much as journalism needs. It's not as if you're paying for fact checking, but you do need money. You also need advertising, because advertising gives you legitimacy. That brand equity is incredibly important for publishers. Without ads, they look janky. They look like they are not legitimate. And then the third thing that they get from the ad tech industry is data. And that data allows them to better identify people who are susceptible to lies, deceit, and bigotry, and to bring them into what we call a marketing funnel, basically a system where they gather as many people as possible to radicalize them over time. And so when you are a propagandist, the ad tech industry is so powerful. And it really is the source of this chaos. This ad tech industry, it is estimated to be between $400 billion and $700 billion. Nobody knows how big it is really. It could be 400 billion or it could be double that. That already is a problem. And we know that 15% of the industry, so 15% of every ad campaign just disappears. We don't know where that money goes. On Google Ads, it's literally just called unknown. It just disappears. That's conservatively $60 billion that just evaporates off the face of the earth every year. We don't know who is getting that money. We do know that they're probably not good people. They're probably not acting in good faith. And so we know that the propaganda industry is an industry. It is benefiting from this economy. And it really is a sort of ATM for the disinformation economy, that place where you go and you just get money out of the bank. All they have to do is pump out fake news, put it on a website, multiply all their fake newses and plug it into the ad tech industry, and then overwhelm the public. And that really is their goal. The goal is not to give information that is wrong. The goal is to sow chaos. The goal is to make people ask, what is truth anyway? Well, how could I even trust journalism? Who knows what is truth? And that opens everyone up for, of course, a charismatic leader. I don't have to tell everyone here this. So that is their goal, and that is what we are working to disrupt. Check My Ads does not play in the gray area, okay? We are not talking about politics that we disagree with. What we're talking about is lies that lead to hate crimes, lies that serve to inflame bigotry, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, and hate. So Sleeping Giants was the Twitter account that Nandini started in 2016 with her business partner. And all they did was tweet at advertisers. Now in 2016, you probably remember that Donald Trump was elected to America. What you probably don't remember is that there was a massive website called Breitbart.com. And it was bigger than CNN.com at the time. It was bigger than FoxNews.com at the time. Combined, it was incredibly popular. Now, this was the most racist, xenophobic news website anyone had seen. They have still to this day a black on black crime section. And Nandini instinctively knew that, because we are both marketers, she said, I bet marketers do not know that their ads are on this racist website. And so they tweeted at advertisers, and one after the other, 4,000 advertisers blocked Breitbart. 31 of the 35 ad exchange companies, the ad tech companies that connected Breitbart to the internet, dropped them. And so Breitbart was going to make $8 million in 2017, but 90% of that disappeared from their bottom line because of this campaign. And Steve Bannon himself, he was the executive, chair? He was in charge of Breitbart at the time. He said that without ads, there's no economic model for this kind of work. And so this was a playbook that Nandini really invented in the field, and it's one that didn't work. It worked against Breitbart. And then when we met in 2019, Nandini and I were asking ourselves, why is the disinformation economy thriving? Breitbart was hurt, but now we have the Daily Caller, and Fox News has taken on the Breitbart model, and we have the Gateway Pundit and all of these other disinformation outlets that are smaller, that proliferate everywhere, that cross-post to everyone else. We thought that this would have been fixed by the industry. It should have been fixed. The ad tech industry knows that it's a problem. They know that advertisers do not want to be funding this stuff. It says in the terms of service for these ad tech companies, we never work with publishers that publish election disinformation. We never work with publishers that publish COVID-19 disinformation. And again, Check My Ads has found that they are lying. They are lying to advertisers. And what we realized is that this is not just a society problem. This is a business problem. And so now we're here as Check My Ads. We are here to defund disinformation at scale. We are nonpartisan. We are non-political. We are here to fight hate, bigotry, disinformation that leads to real world violence. Okay, so what are we actually dealing with? What is this ad tech system? We knew as marketers that advertisers wanted to reach consumers. That's it. And the consumers are on the internet reading publishers. Okay, Condé Nast, you might know, it's the big conglomerate in America. All Recipes is the one with ads all over them that you just want the recipe for pumpkin soup or something. San Francisco Chronicle is local news. ESPN is sports. They want to be there. Where they don't want to be is disinformation. So everywhere where you see orange on this chart is disinformation. And we're finding that advertisers, in order to spend on the internet, it's almost as if they have to pay a disinformation tax. It's very hard to avoid funding disinformation. And so they just consider it an unappealing part of their campaigns. And then we have this big black box. And what is happening with this big black box? We had to figure that out. And so over the last 3 years, what we have done is try our best to understand what is called the supply chain. And we have worked with countless supply chain researchers to figure out how to map disinformation and how it sneaks into the supply chain with the help of these companies. And so you can see that advertisers often use media agencies. Those are agencies that buy media for them, that buy advertising space. And then they either go to a private network or programmatic. And so most of the time we're talking about programmatic, but we have found disinformation in the media networks themselves. That is when they place them manually. And then we have 2 types of ad exchanges, demand side providers and supply side providers. The demand side brings the demand, the people who demand ad space, the advertisers. Supply brings the supply of ad space, the publishers. And then they have an ad exchange. Sometimes the ad exchange is on the DSP side, sometimes it's on the SSP side. This is a much oversimplified version of what really happens. And really what we're looking at with the ad tech supply chain is something that looks a lot like mortgage bundling right before the subprime mortgage crisis. Okay, there are hundreds of SSPs. There's like 20 big DSPs, but there's hundreds of SSPs. We don't know who owns many of them. We don't know who the beneficial owner is. And these are banks of ads, money, and data. What they do is they pool it together and distribute it to the publishers as they see fit. And so if we have an SSP that is pooling ads, money, and data, we should know who owns it. We should be able to track that because that is a weapon of propaganda. Okay, so what is our playbook? Well, what we do is we follow the money using these investigations that we do. We are a team of 8 right now, but really it's only 4 who are doing these investigations and publishing them. I'm incredibly proud of the team that we have. And when we have an investigation that we are sure of, we publish it to our newsletter and we publish it to social media and to our website. And that newsletter is called Branded. And what we do is we alert the public and advertisers about how disinformation is co-opting the system. And one after another, what happens is advertisers block them and ad exchanges drop them. And that ad exchange dropping them is so much more powerful than the advertisers doing anything. And so that is why we've focused on the ad tech companies themselves. A lot of people ask us, do advertisers like your work? And the answer is it's complicated, but mostly yes. They don't have control over their ad campaigns. They cannot see where their ads went, and they don't control them before the ads go out, which is, of course, the position of power that you want to be in. Now, these advertisers, they spend billions per year. Procter & Gamble spends $11 billion per year on advertising. We found them inadvertently funding Steve Bannon just 3 weeks ago. And so when we do this, we find that it cuts millions of dollars off at the source. I wanted to show you other things. Does anyone have any questions right now? This is what we do.
Maybe I may have a question. Adtech only means that the ads on the websites. What about Facebook ads or other ads on social media? Is it also kind of part of this problem or something different?
It's very much a part of the problem. When we talk about the disinformation economy, most people think of Facebook. Facebook, of course, promotes disinformation. It's good for their algorithm. They make a lot of money off ads on Facebook if more people are engaging. But Facebook is not where disinformation makes money. Disinformation makes money on their own websites. And so they make money when you click on the hate bait and then it opens a new website. That's where dozens of ad tech companies are waiting to serve you those display ads. Oops, it put a hand up for me. I don't know how to take it off. Lower hand, there it is. So that's what we're dealing with. Our campaign this year was to defund the insurrectionists. And I excuse myself for being so America-centric. But in 2020, there was an insurrection or an attempted insurrection in America on January 6th. A year after that, we realized that advertisers had sponsored the insurrection. We knew that right away, but nothing had changed about it. So the advertisers sponsored the last insurrection, and if they don't block these 6 men, they are going to sponsor the next one. And so we decided to launch a campaign called Defund the Insurrectionists. These are all the people who we identified made the most money off of the big lie. Dan Bongino he's often on Fox News, on Fox and Friends. He is a real loudmouth disinformation guy. He actually ran a whole campaign against us, calling my business partner a cat lady and a radical leftist Antifa. She's more of a dog person, so we knew it was disinformation. And he was just a real nasty guy. We lost him all his ads. Charlie Kirk is he's sort of a millennial, cool white nationalist. He sent 80 buses to the insurrection, full of mostly college students. One of the people on his bus ended up assaulting a police officer and getting charged. This man had a website called charliekirk.com that has now been completely demonetized from programmatic ads. There's one type of ad still on his website, but it's a sponsor and it's sort of manually placed there. It's not programmatic. So I don't know how much money he's getting from that, but we kicked him off all his ad exchanges. Glenn Beck, you might know, he's more of the more prominent disinformation guys. His website has been hit, not entirely, but we took away quite a few of his ad exchanges, I think 5 or so. You probably know Steve Bannon. He's a self-described fascist, and he works in close relationship with other global fascists, and his goal is the rise of global authoritarianism. He is blocked from the whole ad tech system in theory, but we keep finding that he sneaks back onto the supply chain all the time. And so we're constantly uncovering new rocks with him underneath of them. And it is working. We have taken millions of dollars away from him and his show, which is now called Real America's Voice. At some point, he also had a show called Pandemic War Room. And then Tim Pool is a YouTuber. He's just asking questions, but he ended up really supporting the narrative of the big lie. And then, of course, Fox News. Fox News is the biggest purveyor of the big lie. They still do publish the big lie, and we have a campaign going still that emails ad exchanges and says, you deleted these other 5 insurrectionists. How is Fox News any different? We would like to know.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
You work with advertisers and people in the sector. Probably they don't like that their advertising is in this problematic websites. But on the other hand, how do you see if they understand, for example, racism, anti-Semitism, and bigoted thoughts thoroughly, or is it like just they don't want their image is kind of broken?
It's a mix. Most of the advertisers with whom we've had discussions have said that they personally do not want to work on a campaign that supports the things that make their community less safe. They overwhelmingly feel like this is not appropriate.
Mm-hmm. What about right-wing advertisers? There are some people that can believe that, okay, these are good, cool websites. It's good that I am funding them indirectly.
Okay, so some advertisers still want to be on Fox News. Tucker Carlson's show on Fox News doesn't have many advertisers. Most of them have fled. They recognize that his white nationalism is not considered brand safe. But online, they don't have that same luxury of choosing where to be. So on cable news, they have fled his show. Online on foxnews.com, foxnews.com is by default prioritized in the ad tech system. And we find that advertisers are finding themselves on Fox News by default unless they block it. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a system that automatically funnels money towards disinformation. And so our entire campaign is about asking ad tech companies, hey, your terms of service say that you don't work with publishers that publish election disinformation, or you don't work with publishers that seek to overthrow the government. That's literally a line in one of the terms of service. So why are you working with Fox News? And if you're working with Fox News, why are you prioritizing Fox News over other local sources of good information, or even national sources of legitimate journalism? Now, the question there becomes, well, what is journalism? Again, we are not playing in the gray area. We are not saying some people are journalists and some people are not. We are saying that some news outlets purport to be news outlets, but what they are doing is repeatedly, consistently publishing lies that lead to violence. Hate crimes in American urban areas went up 39% last year. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the consistent pattern of publication of disinformation. We have a newsletter. It's called Branded. You can find it at checkmyads.org. You can also go to /branded. And if you just sign up on Branded here, you put your email in, that's where you can get our investigations. Some of our investigations are about how Google works, because Google funds the vast majority of the disinformation economy. We've uncovered a site list that was like their default campaign setting. And we uncovered how Google is working with websites that America has sanctioned, that the National Intelligence Officer in America has sanctioned because they are psyops. They're Russian psyops that are going after American citizens. So we uncovered like 20 ad exchanges that were working with them, including Google. Google said they would fix it. They haven't. And then I told you already how we found that Procter & Gamble were inadvertently funding Steve Bannon yet again. We do lots of these investigations and reports, and it works. We've taken millions out of the disinformation economy.
Can I ask another question? Like we understood that it hurts websites that disseminate this information. Does it also hurt this intermediary companies, Google and so forth, when they cut these ads? Do they earn less money than before, or what is the motivation behind their negligence?
Yes, they earn a little bit less, of course, in the meantime, because they take an enormous share of the ad revenue. I mean, it's estimated that they can take an average of about 68% of the entire campaign for themselves. I don't feel sorry for them.
And maybe another question, we can also talk. If there are other questions, please ask your questions. But I wonder, in Europe, for example, we are in different countries in this Zoom room, but also people will watch it. For example, imagine we are fighting anti-Semitism in Poland, and I know there are some colleagues from Poland, and probably they have also issues in Poland, in Polish media. What can they really do, as they are not, for example, they are non-marketers? Is it like a kind of viable model everywhere, or is it like a global problem, or is it more a kind of a US problem, a US kind of landscape?
I think that that every country will have different entryways into this ad tech economy. In Poland, there are not a lot of ad tech companies that are based in Poland. However, if advocates in Poland made a fuss about different ad tech companies around the world, probably mostly American, who were working with publishers of disinformation, and they saw in the terms of service of these companies that they were that they were against publishing disinformation, then they could figure out a way to get in the media about it or to contact us so that we could help them. When you are looking at a disinformation outlet, do you have one off the top of your head? Otherwise, I'll pick one.
You can pick any.
Okay, so a disinformation outlet in America is called the Daily Wire. It's run by Ben Shapiro. It's got Candace Owens. She's a famous bigot. They are deeply transphobic. They are violently transphobic. When we want to know, well, what advertising do they have? Well, first of all, do they have ads? Oh God, they have Jordan Peterson now. What an embarrassment. Here, we check to see if they have ads. I don't see one right away, but they do. So then what I do is we go to dailywire.com/ads.txt. Can you see that on the screen? Ads.txt. When you go to this file, and all of the websites that connect to the ad tech industry have this file. When you go to this file, you will see the website or the ad tech companies that they have given permission to sell their ad space. So you see Sovereign, MediaNet, Hubmatic, Sharethrough. There's AppNexus and Rubicon. Here's Google. These are all the ad tech companies that work with this disinformation outlet. OpenWeb is a big one. They do comments. They run the comments and then runs ads inside the comments. That is how you can find out what ad tech companies they are connected to. And then if you want to look at their terms of service, let's do OpenWeb. Isn't this rich? Their entire marketing says, we're here to save online conversations. There's a crisis of toxicity online. Our comment section will never have xenophobia, bigotry, hate. Of course, that's just not true. We have seen again and again that they have some of the most vile comment sections on the internet because they work with disinformation. And so that's all you need. That's all you need to juxtapose what they are doing in their business and their business marketing practices. And then if you also want to see, how do we moderate, you can find on their websites, what are they actually doing? How do they describe their positioning? And then what is the promise that they make to advertisers? And if that promise does not line up with their real world business practices, then you have a story.
Great. What about for example, in Europe on YouTube, some problematic videos, they also have advertisements. Also, can we do something about it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, YouTube is a mess. I don't know if this is the one. Community guidelines, that's the one. So this is where YouTube has a set of standards that they promise, and YouTube breaks these standards again and again. I mean, they publish all kinds of things. They were working with Russia Today until very recently. It's a harder one to crack. Google is a monopoly, and the way to combat the disinformation on YouTube is to try to get it in the news. Google hates being in the news.
Is there any other question from the room? Because I have many questions, but if you have questions, please show yourself.
You had a question about hate speech or freedom of speech.
Yeah, definitely. It's discussion here. Does your work somehow limit free speech, and how do you respond to the critics?
We often get that question, and we really take free speech to heart. Free speech is one of the pillars that America was built upon, and it's because they wanted freedom from a government. You know, advertisers don't have free speech within this system. Advertisers expect one thing. They expect their advertising to go to certain places, but they're actually going to other places. And so what we are doing is fighting for the free speech of advertisers. When it comes to the publishers themselves, they have the right to have a website. It's not as if we're taking them off the internet, but they don't have the right to advertising campaigns. I mean, that's just not how business works. And so I don't think we're infringing on anyone's free speech. I actually think we're fighting for it.
Another tricky question, maybe it's not your area, but we have many educators in the network, and we discuss if education works against disinformation, if it works, how it works. And I've heard some tactics about inoculation of the groups, like you have to reach out to groups before they hear lies, and you have to train them about media literacy, how to fact check. But on the other hand, on the social media, fact checking takes more time than lying, and sometimes you cannot really respond to lies or disinformation as quick as they disseminate them. So what do you think about it? Do we have a role as educators in this scene, or what you do is a kind of funding the core of this problem?
We need to do everything, and everyone should play a part. We need far more people to help fight the global rise of authoritarianism, of course. What we can do, though, is on the internet, there are 12 to 20 really loud voices about disinformation, and they are the ones who are spreading the most. And that's really what we focus on at Check My Ads. We're trying to cut off disinformation at the head of it. And we believe, that is our theory of change, that will make a difference over time. The fact that Dan Bongino doesn't get ads is really wonderful. It means that Dan Bongino cannot monetize his hate. He has to move to other places, and he did. He moved to Rumble. Rumble is a platform that is mostly a video platform for kind of the alt-right. They are invested in and owned by Peter Thiel of Palantir, and they have an ad system. Sometimes they get good ads, but advertisers can block Rumble, and that's really what we're fighting for, so that they can be on the internet, but advertisers should know where they are so that they can avoid them. And most advertisers, of course, given control of their ad campaigns, block disinformation.
Okay, there's a question. Can you see it? I will read it loud. From Even. My question is on your supply chain diagram for Adtech. Which box are the orgs in the Adtech txt files?
So when you go to a publisher, you're going to say allrecipes.com, and you type in ads.txt. The companies that come up are the supply side providers and the demand side providers. And you'll see that there's sort of I mean, maybe you won't see, but you should know that they're sort of nested. But those are all the companies that they have said have permission to sell their inventory. When we publish brandeds, we always double check that these companies are working with these publishers, because the publishers could lie, they could say anything. But instead what we say is we look at the demand side provider sellers list. It's called sellers.json. So sellers.json. And that is how we cross-check before we publish. And it's up to those demand side providers and supply side providers or the ad exchanges to keep their sellers.json updated so that we can always know what is actually happening on the supply chain. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. I think even if you need some more questions, please write or ask. I have another question. You know, in our experience, it was also historically so. Victimhood is one of the things that fascist right feed on. They like to be victims and victimized, and they can use this discourse to reach out to millions. I think it happened in the US after Trump was banned from Twitter. Do you have any ideas if your work kind of exacerbates this discourse on the other end of the political spectrum?
Yeah, I mean, Fox News said that we were cancel culture and that we were trying to fight against free speech. And the fact is it's just not true. I mean, if anything, the ad exchanges are abusing advertisers' goodwill. And we don't care what the disinformation or the fascist narratives are, because we know their intent. They've given it to us again and again. And the fact is that if we are ever going to combat these narratives, we have to ignore them. We have to go ahead and take a stand. And that's really the biggest thing that we are up against within the ad tech system and within the advertising industry at large, is the bravery to say what they say doesn't matter. We're drawing a line.
Thank you very much, Lair, for your time and your input. If you want to say the last few words, you're welcome. We will put it on YouTube channel of ours. We don't do any disinformation on our channel, I must say. It will be a really important information for our audience. And thank you very much. And please.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to be here. I wish everyone a good weekend. If you would like to contact me, please do. I'm on Twitter. You can DM me. We are always here to help. And the more people who understand how this system works, the more we will be able to disarm the disinformation economy. So I think we should all work together. And it's been a real pleasure and a privilege to be here. Thank you.